Palestine, because that was the demographic balance of power. Secondly, there was the feeling, the sense among Zionist leaders that they had a very opportune historical moment, given what they immediately recognized was the passivity of the Arab regimes, their inability to intervene. It was a twilight zone between the British mandatory period and a new phase that nobody knew exactly how it would look. And therefore, in the end of the day, this program of retaliation was not producing any tangible result that could advance forward the project of creating a Jewish state. More important, I think, than anything else was the Palestinian reaction to the United Nations resolution, that what I called before as the peace plan. When this resolution was adopted, the Palestinian society reacted very angrily. The leadership of the Palestinian community declared a 3-day of strike, of protests, and so on. But after 3 or 4 days, the energy petered out. And as before in the history of Palestine, it looked like an unhappy juncture, but not something that takes you out of your routine. So if you look at the newspapers at the time, Palestinians, businessmen went back to businesses after 3 days of strike. Villagers went back to cultivate the lands. There was a return to normality in many ways, which bothered very much the Zionist leaders. There is a number of reports that the agents of the let's call it military intelligence of the Zionist leadership are sending back to the headquarters in Tel Aviv at that period. And it's very clear that their mission was to show that there are very extraordinary preparation on the Palestinian side to change by force the United Nations resolution. But nothing of that happened on the ground on a drastic scale. And I think that was the crucial moment. The crucial moment, understanding that the United Nations resolution, or rather that the Palestinian reaction to the United Nations resolution would not serve as a pretext that could be used by the Zionist movement to say, here comes the big retaliation, because they attacked us. We attacked them back, and, well, in an attack back, everything can happen. I think that this forced the Zionist leadership to be much more active and not wait for a retaliatory moment in the future. And as I try to show in the book, this was not an easy position for the Zionist leadership, and therefore the decision was not taken in any official body. The Zionist community in Palestine was very organized. It already had a government, it had a parliament, so to speak of, it had ministerial departments, and there was actually designated bodies that were supposed to take decisions on security issues. But taking an active decision to ethnically cleanse Palestine could not have been discussed in these official bodies. And therefore, as I claim in my book, I think David Ben-Gurion created what he called was a consultative committee, Va'ada Meya'etzet, a very simple name, because not very clear what does the consultative committee should consult him about. I called it in my book the consultancy. There's only one document I found from the 7th of January 1948 where one member of the consultancy, Israel Galili, who was one of the top commanders of the Zionist underground, the Haganah, has erased by a pen 11 names from a document which comes under the headlines of a consultative body. These 11 names reappear in David Ben-Gurion's diary later on, and I'm convinced that these are the 11 people that took the crucial decisions between the December or November 47 up to February 1948 to systematically cleanse the population, of the Palestinian population, in Palestine. They met every Wednesday because every Wednesday was the official day of meeting for the Jewish underground, the Haganah, and they met in a building which was called the Red Building. I have a very lively, I hope, description of that building in my book that you can read about. That book used to be the headquarters of the trade unions, the Jewish trade unions. Therefore, it's one of the reasons it was called the Red House, because it had a socialist character to it. But the building was turned into the headquarters of the military, paramilitary underground of the Zionist movement in February 1947. And in that building, meetings took place, and later on in David Ben-Gurion's house, to discuss the details of how to implement the ethnic cleansing of Palestine. And the first operation was in the middle of February 1948, when 5 Palestinian villages were expelled by force from the coast in a place called today Caesarea, an ancient Roman town that also hosted 3 Palestinian villages. The amazing thing about this cleansing operation of the 5 villages around the coast, that it was done when Britain was still responsible for law and order, when the United Nations had already emissaries roaming the country, and there were many foreign journalists. And these people were moved out by force in a few hours from 5 villages. And the results satisfied the Zionist leadership, and I think gave it the final proof that actually it should move even to a more extended policy. And on the 10th of March 1948, the Zionist leadership adopted a plan that it called Plan D. Plan D in the historiography of the conflict appears in 2 forms. Many historians used Plan D as it appeared in a book which is called the Haganah, the book of the Haganah, the book of the military underground, where a very thin version of Plan D appears in the appendix. And the great Palestinian historian Walid Khalidi translated it into English, and this appeared in the Journal of Palestine Studies, if I'm not mistaken, in 1988 for the first time. And definitely this part of the plan is the public side of the plan that was known to people at the time, where ethnic cleansing is very clearly articulated, but only for certain parts of Palestine. Only certain parts of Palestine. But there, in 1998, under the Israeli law of military documents, new documents were released in the Israeli military archives. And the whole cluster of commands that were attached to that plan, Plan D, were also made available for historians. And there you can see that Plan D was much more comprehensive. That actually the Zionist leadership on the 10th of March 1948, those 11 people that I call the consultancy, had divided Palestine into 12 areas because they had 12 brigades. And that each brigade had a very clear list of villages in that zone that was under its command. And the amazing thing for those who know Hebrew is the frequent use of the word letaher, to cleanse. All the commands have a very clear language. You should occupy the village named so and so and cleanse it, and cleanse it. Each village, some, and I never figured out why, some villages had to be cleansed, some villages had to be destroyed according to the commands. If you check what really happened on the ground, the fate was the same. The fate was the same. So it started in earnest after the 10th of March. And it starts in earnest actually on the 1st of April 1948 with the villages on around Jerusalem. And this is where the famous massacre in Deir Yassin happens on the 9th of April 1948.